I love that song, I swear. I can to that all day. Anyway, my name's Frank. My rant this week is about old attorney of mine who I like to call conflict of interest. Roland conflict of interest Millard of Drake in his ventures on his OUI, that operating under the influence, that he got several years ago. My source for this information is out of the Lowell District Court in Lowell, Massachusetts. It's docket number 9911 CR 4090, and it's dated on June 25th of 1999. I came across this little tidbit regarding my former lawyer, whom I referred to as Attorney Conflict of Interest, Roland Milliard. His law office is, as I mentioned, is situated in Drake, Massachusetts. I guess on the June 25th of 1999, which was between the time Millard actually represented me in court and then rejected representing me again, claiming he'd be in conflict of interest. Millard's date of birth, Attorney Roland Millard's date of birth is March 28th of 1957. He got whacked himself for operating under the influence of liquor by the Lowell Police Department. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy as far as I'm concerned. Keep in mind now, at the time of this particular arrest, Millard was 42, not exactly a kid, and had been practicing law at least 7 years. Not exactly a rookie attorney. I would have assumed Millard must have represented a couple dozen individuals who were charged with similar violations at this point of his career. One would also assume, since his own butt was personally in a sling here, this would probably be the absolute best legal effort on Millard's part. Final verdict? $500 fine, 1 year loss of license. His motion to dismiss was denied, and his motion to recuse was denied. In other words, guilty. Millard did have the God-given common sense to have another local attorney represent him before the court, probably to help keep his emotions in check. But his motion to dismiss was based upon being denied his right to an independent blood examination by the Lowell Police Department. And this was based on Commonwealth versus King, 429 Mass 169, which was also a case in 1999. And all this time, I just assumed that the only options an individual stopped on a drunk driving charge was they could either take a breathalyzer test or refuse to take a breathalyzer test. But why the heck could any community pass a law to afford an alleged drunk driver the right to take an independent blood test in lieu of the aforementioned? For example, let's say a cop stops you at about 11 at night. You're about 8 or 9 hours away from any legitimate independent health clinic that draws blood from being open to the public. In that span of time, most of the alcohol would already be out of your system, and you'd be considered quote-unquote sober. If you were a selectman or city councilor in Massachusetts, I would fight tooth and nail to abolish a phony baloney law like that. It sounds like something that was deliberately set up as an obscure thing all the beautiful politically correct residents of Massachusetts, i.e. the Kennedy family, utilize whenever they get caught drunk driving. Thank God the Lowell District Court saw through Millard's flimsy bull bleep on this one. So if I were to assume this was Millard's quote-unquote best effort since it personally involved himself, exactly how many alleged drunk driving clients, a fairly popular crime, at least according to the local newspapers, do you suppose Millard represented in his then 21-year career as a lawyer? A couple dozen? A couple hundred? In all likelihood, all with a similar type verdict as Millard got for himself. If they're going to falsely label a fraud like Attorney Millard, quote-unquote, an officer of the court, he ought to be legally required to disclose to any potential drunk driving client of his own failed experience before the court regarding this particular crime. Even if he's ordered by the court to serve as a public defender on a DUI or an OUI recipient. For those who have never had the opportunity of actually meeting Roland Milliard, he's sort of like a caloric challenge version of Paul Newman's character, attorney Frank Galvin, in the great 1982 courtroom flick, The Verdict. Oh, I gotta sneeze. Achoo! Ugh, I hate when that happens. Check out what IMDb.com's movie storyline stated about Attorney Galvin, which one would swear that this character was modeled after Milliard. Frank Galvin is a down-on-his-luck lawyer reduced to drinking and ambulance chasing. Blundering his way through the preliminaries, he suddenly realizes that perhaps after all the case should go to court to punish the guilty, to get a decent settlement for his clients, and to restore his standing as a lawyer. Ironically, or maybe not so ironically, Millard's most successful high-profile case, in my humble opinion, was definitely alcohol-related. Apparently, in the late 90s, a number of Drake High School seniors were apprehended in the White Mountain resort community of Lincoln, New Hampshire, for being allegedly intoxicated in public following their traditional prom. School administrators then informed these particular students that they would not be graduating in the ceremony event with their fellow classmates due to their behavior on prom night. With these students' parents collectively retaining Milliard, he managed to file, I assume, an injunction against Drake High School unless these alleged drunk students were allowed to participate in their graduation ceremony. So rather than, in essence, canceling the whole graduation event, Drake school officials compromised their stance and allowed the supposedly inebriated students to graduate with their classmates. So while the fictitious character of attorney Frank Galvin scored his biggest legal accomplishment by successfully suing the Catholic Church for medical malpractice and winning a multi-million-dollar award for his client in a movie, The Verdict, the highlight of Attorney Millard's 21-year career was probably being elected president to the Greater Lowell Bar Association, as well as in enabling a number of allegedly drunk teenagers the opportunity to graduate in the same ceremony along with their classmates. Which accomplishment do you think sounds more impressive? Don't get me wrong. As I mentioned earlier in a posting on the same blog regarding Millard's success or lack thereof, rate in high-profile cases, I'm sure even the great American lawyers like Alan Dershowitz and F. Lee Bailey have lost their fair share of lawsuits. You can't win them all, as the old cliche goes. On the flip side of that, I'm sure these same great attorneys win a heck of a lot more than they lose. Otherwise, they never would have established the successful reputations they've got. It seems like a couple times a year we hear about individuals involved in high-profile court cases who supposedly got away with murder. O.J. Simpson, Casey Anthony, Louise Woodworth, and Klaus von Bülow are all individuals, for example, who avoided life in prison or the death penalty because they had a great lawyer to cash just enough reasonable doubt for the jurors to allow them to go free. I don't believe Milliard has ever represented anything of this magnitude or intensity, yet he couldn't even carry Alan Dershowitz's jockstrap when it comes to court case success rate. Why people continue to retain Milliard in high-profile court cases is totally beyond me. As it states in the biblical book of 1 Corinthians, if a man or woman be ignorant, let him or her be ignorant. I'm Frank. It's my rant of the day. Good night, God bless, and I'll see you soon with another rant, I hope. Thank you.